Democracy That Delivers is brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. Now, to your host.
Welcome, everyone, to the episode of Democracy That Delivers podcast. My name is Ryan Musser. I'm a program officer in CIPE's Africa department, and I'll be your host today, along with my colleague and co-host Kim Betcher, who is the Director of Policy and Program Learning at CIPE. Today, we'll be chatting with someone who I've had the pleasure of working with over the past few years, Wisborne Malaya. He is the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations, which is also known as ZCIEA. At ZCIEA, Wisborne oversees and advocates for the interests of workers in the informal sector. He has a long history of working with the informal sector. He's also an executive member of the International Federation of Workers' Education Associations, which aims to prioritize adult education opportunities for workers within their communities. Prior to that, Wisborne served as the International East and Southern Africa Regional Coordinator for StreetNet, which is the International Alliance of Street Vendors. Wisborne has a long history of advocating for workers' rights, not just in Southern Africa, but globally as well. In 2018 and 19, he took part in the Informal Economy International Task Force team, which pushed for the inclusion of the informal economy at the International Labor Conference in Geneva and advocated for the adoption of ILO Convention 190, which is on the eradication of violence and harassment in the world of work. So Wisborne has a long history of advocating for the rights of informal workers and entrepreneurs. And as I mentioned, we've been working with ZCIEA since 2018, and I'm really looking forward to Wisborne being able to share a little bit about his experience and insight into the informal economy in Zimbabwe and throughout the world today. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ryan. How are you? I'm very well. Thank you very much. And greetings to everyone listening to this podcast.
Great, and excited to be speaking with someone like Wisborne, who's both an expert and an activist.
Yes, Wisborne is definitely a great inspiration for all of us with all the great work that you're doing in Zimbabwe, and really looking forward to learning more and sharing about the work that you guys are doing in Zimbabwe.
It's really interesting to be talking about economic informality today. And we've often told the story at CIPE about how our very first partner back in 1984 from Peru was Hernando de Soto, which got us thinking and learning about informality, and remains a very fresh and important topic today. So although informality has been with us forever, it's often misunderstood still. And so I want to start, Wisborne, by asking you, who is an informal trader? What are their aspirations and what are they like?
Thank you, Kim, for the good discussion. And before I answer your question, I just got surprised from your comments earlier when you said Wisborne is an activist and an expert. I didn't realize that. You're just making me realize this, that I'm having two jackets here, an expert and an activist. And it is quite a noble thing to note from my end. And, the reason behind all this is the question you've asked, where an informal trader, first and foremost, is just a human being who was born like any other human being on earth. And this human being has grown either to become an adult, who also had aspirations when they were growing up, to maybe get a formal job, and also, have those a lot of different dreams of life, but did not maybe have an opportunity to get the job they intended to by different factors, either, education, maybe employment opportunities, and they identify themselves into doing some form of work which can make them earn a living. And by such activity, that person is earning a living, is building a family, taking care of a family. Maybe if it's a woman, maybe the husband is passed on and they try to find a way to take care of the family. They started selling different forms of products and they become an informal trader who can also be named an informal worker. Some have finished different forms of courses at higher institutions and they failed to get an opportunity for a job. and they find themselves trying to earn a living in different ways, and they become an informal worker of an informal trader. So basically, that's a simple description I can give to an informal trader.
And there are a couple of images of people in the informal economy. One image is that they're really creative and resourceful and resilient. And then, the other image is that it's subsistence. They're just trying to stay above water and survive. Which image appeals to you?
So for me, I think in a way I fit into both images. If I speak of the background of my life, where as I grew up, I was also a product of an informal trader who happens to be my mother. When my father died when I was we were young in a family of 5. I remember I was still 10 years old then, and my father was an indigenous man. When he was alive, life was also good. But when he died, because of the nature of his work, there were no any social safety nets for us. Life suddenly turned bad, and it took the courage of my mother to start selling in the streets different forms of products, vegetables, and so forth, and also doing cross-border trading for us to finish school and keep having food at the table. And when we grew up in that space, there also came a time that I was of age to get a formal employment, which I could not get. And unfortunately, I also found myself in the informal economy space. And having been introduced by a mother's friend to cross-border trading, I also started selling curios in South Africa. And I also contributed to make the family survive out of that. And it happened that when I went through a bad patch in South Africa and I was arrested by immigration officials for illegal trading, and the deportation process was quite bad. It was hell on earth. I then said, no, look, I need to survive, but I can't continue to cross the border given the circumstances I faced. And I decided to be innovative to identify what I can do. And I started to do print broking in Zimbabwe. And that made me start to earn a living and also start to identify opportunities like one where there were people organizing workers and traders in the informal economy. And I felt the interest because of my background to be part of such an institution, which is ZCIEA, and I joined ZCIEA. So you then, if you follow what I was sharing, you then understand that I was part of a vulnerable space in the form of my mother, who became an informal trader because of the desperation to take care of her children, to finish school and also earn a living. Then I became also a desperate child who wanted an employment. I could not get it, and I fell into the informal economy. But within that space, I then got an opportunity to become an advocate or an expert, which you have said earlier on, who I am today, to represent the informal workers and traders as far as their interests are concerned. So it's a multifaceted space. There are people who are desperate, who are just living from hand to mouth. And there are also people who are occupying the space, they get opportunities, and they can be better people in life.
Thank you for that. That story, Wisborne. I think it goes to show, your ability to advocate for informal economy workers really comes from a place of deep experience, deep personal experience, which I think really adds to your voice as you advocate for the informal economy. I'm curious, from your experience, from your research, from conversations you've had with others, what are the similarities of the informal economy in Zimbabwe and other countries who have informal economies? What similarities are there, and how is the experience of working in the informal economy in Zimbabwe unique from where we might see informal economies in other countries?
So I was saying, from the 90s, the informal economy started to grow, after the introduction of the SAPs. And the people could not get employment because companies were closing down, retrenchment was on the rise, and people became desperate. But as many people who were in the industries, they also had a skill. So they were taking their skill either to their house or to the backyard of their house or to their rural home and start to use it to earn a living out of it. And the informal economy rose from there. Others who didn't have a skill could learn from those who are skills as assistants and they could get a skill and go and expand on the skill by themselves and earn a living. And gradually, the informal economy has been growing through that space. And now you then discover that with all that happening, there has never been a political will to put together a policy which can address the challenges these people are facing. The policies of the country have continued to look toward from the formal setups of employment, which were shrinking every day. And you realize that even to this day in our country, Zimbabwe, the current policies, they mainly favor the formal setup. Yet about 84.5% of people are now in the informal economy. And at the end of the day, they face challenges, which I refer like to my mother when she was working for us to earn a living, has also been facing then confiscation of goods, harassments, arrests, being given those bad labels like an illegal trader. You are just given that bad label. And that on its own, I've noted that in Zimbabwe, this is topical. Everyone who comes and occupies these offices of authority, they just say their willy-nilly statement about the informal worker and trader without having a good understanding of where are these people coming from. And it has happened, allow me to say, in the global south. In Africa, there are many countries which are doing the same. And across the global south, I've seen across our next door, Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria, all these countries, they are also doing the same, criminalizing informal workers, Uganda. And sometimes, especially now the world has become very techno. You see even on social media, people, making those small clips and posting on platforms, the challenges which are happening. And the question which I always have had is, are these people getting this idea from the same pot? Which now speaks to issues to do with the regional blocks, like the AU, Africa Union, SADC, or COMESA, or any other of these blocks. Whether do they agree and make decisions to say we are going to criminalize the workers in the informal economy? They are a mercy to our countries at the expense of looking at them as citizens and agreeing to come up with a policy framework that protects them and promote them to be better citizens in their countries. So this is what I've observed. And to me, it's also a very big push factor for the space I'm working in to say I have a mission and a serious passion to to contribute to a change of mindset as far as how the governments in the global south view the informal workers and traders. Let's talk of the statistics. If you understand, Kim, that most of economies now are benefiting from informal economic activities in different facets. I'll refer to Zimbabwe. The statistics of Zimbabwe speak to about 53% of women in the informal economy, contributing to about 60% of the country's GDP. So you then discover, and these people, they are still viewed as illegal traders, most of them. And the question is then, who is being saved by the policies of the day? So this is what I can say to you, Ryan, to say, in terms of comparison, the challenges in the global south, they are the same. I don't mean to say anything bad, but I just wonder how come with most of these first world countries, they also have informal economy, workers and traders. But these people, they are well treated, protected by the laws of their land. Why can our governments not just copy the same? Because these are citizens before they are informal workers. Yeah.
Now, Wisborne, you've pointed out that there's biased policy against the informal economy, that people are criminalized. There's a negative image. If you were to turn this around, what would be your positive image and vision of how the informal operators would be seen, or what their status would be? What's your positive vision?
My positive vision is I will start it at a personal note, Kim. My mother, she worked all the years she worked. She never got a pension. She never got any form of social security. But she took care of 5 children to finish school. And today they are adults and they run their own families. I'm taking care of my mother now. But if she gets sick, it's me who has to pump out money from my pocket to take her to the hospital. So my comment is there should be a political bias which I think it's mainly at this space of regional blocks, to just compel every country to put up a policy that recognizes the informal workers and traders in that country and not treat them as criminals, but identify the opportunities in the work they do and support them to become happy citizens. If they are operating at a place where there is no proper infrastructure, it should be the duty of the government through different local authority spaces to put up proper infrastructure. This we call recognition of the work they do. We also have an issue where sometimes some of them, the work they do has got opportunities to become big enterprises. The government should look at that and support them and put up a financial inclusion system that can improve their working conditions, living conditions to become entrepreneurs. And by the end, they also create employment for others. We also have a look to look at issues to do with the social protection, to put the social safety nets, which takes care of each and every member within the informal economy, according to their opportunities or vulnerability, so that they can be better citizens by the end of the day. We also have to look at the issue of the legal framework that let them be protected by the laws of the land, so that they can do better than they are doing today if they have a legal cover. Then the last should be the issue to do with freedom of association. Informal workers and traders should not be blocked from presenting or expressing their views about the way they see life or the way they are being treated, because they also need to be heard in the global world so that their lives can be better. So this is what I think positively we should look into, and we have to certainly target these big blocks a bit. I know the UN is very good with the instruments, international instruments. We look at the SDG goals, SDGs. They're all speaking to promoting better living conditions for informal workers and traders. But the challenge we are having is the domestication part of it. I only realized recently that some of these governments, especially in our Africa or the global south, they don't want to commit into domestication of these international instruments because they feel the instruments will bind them if they fail to deliver. But the truth is, this is what we want to do. We have to domesticate those instruments and start to operate according to the expected standards.
Great. Thank you for that. Wisborne, in some of your answer, you touched on some of the work that the SIPE has been doing with ZCIEA over the past few years. So could you share a little bit with the audience about some of the work that ZCIEA is doing on the ground with the coalition? And I'm curious to from the work that ZCIEA has done with the Informal Economy Coalition in Zimbabwe, what lessons have you learned over the past few years about advocating for the informal economy?
Yeah, SIPE came from, I don't know where did SIPE come from, to occupy the crucial space of supporting the work of the informal economy in Zimbabwe, because the timing was just excellent. I remember, especially when we started the partnership with SIPE, we're heading toward the elections, and we did a lot of work on the town halls where we were educating the members about the importance of voting, not to vote for a party, but to vote for people who can improve the conditions of your living and working as informal workers and traders. And the impact was very great. But because it was first time to give such a type of training to the communities, some still operated in fear. But even after elections, that impact is still being felt to this day, such that it's very important to say if an opportunity is there again to expand on that space, since we are also heading into elections 2023. The reason being that people are now understanding the importance of being represented by somebody who changes the conditions of their lives. And they now understand what is democracy. I know we have work to do to also keep cultivating to people to understand democracy as a culture, but all the work we have been doing under SIPE are already feeding into promoting democracy and understanding to people. And we have been having a coalition program where we have been pushing for the agenda to cause our government to have a bill or a law which respects or promotes the operations of the informal workers. And it has not been an easy goal, but I learned from that coalition that we united as five different organizations and we started speaking with one voice. Initially, the government used to say we are fragmented. So we used that coalition to show our unity of purpose. And I can confirm the government is very much now calling us, asking us questions about moves or decisions they are making. Now we are in a process where the government is doing a formalization strategy through the Ministry of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare. And we believe the work we have done under SIPE has really pushed for this agenda to come on board as the government is beginning to realize the value of the informal economy. So that partnership has really brought some very positive dimension in the space. And we are only hopeful that certainly the validation process will lead into our country having a law that protects the operations of the informal economy. We are cautious, though, that the government will not prioritize taxation only, as we are seeing from some of the papers as a priority, but they also take care of some key areas, which are some of them I've highlighted earlier, to make sure workers and traders in the informal economy better citizens.
We haven't really talked much about the idea of formalization and what this might mean for the whole sector or for individuals and companies in the sector. So do you see piece by piece that more and more members of the informal economy can find opportunities? Do you see a big change? Do you see different policies and support for different parts of the informal economy? How do you think about formalization? Is it realistic? Is it desirable?
Yeah, so the word formalization is broad in the sense because even we are talking about it and we are using ILO recommendation 204, which speaks of transition from informality to formality. But the good news of that recommendation, it has got specific obligations. It recommends to each and every department, starting with the government, the business, the labor, as well as informal workers and traders. And if that concept of the recommendation 204 is followed, formalization as an approach to put harmony in the informal economy is the right way to go because it allows workers and traders in the informal economy to be part of the mainstream economy. It speaks to issues of infrastructure development, access to markets, and networking, the entrepreneurs in the informal economy, those in big businesses. It speaks to the social protection. It speaks to financial inclusion, and it speaks to also devolution, of decisions. So that's what is crucial. But if formalization is now targeting a taxing the informal economy and making sure everyone is registered and pays certain forms of amounts to be registered, if not, then one does not operate. That one is not realistic and will never be practical. Remember, the world is becoming a technological world every day. We are in the fourth industrial revolution, where machines are taking over jobs. So this is it's another new era which is promoting the informal economy. So the informal economy is not going anywhere; it's here to stay. But what is key is to put up some measures to make sure it's part of the mainstream economy so that everyone can benefit. The government can benefit, as well as the informal economy workers, traders, and workers can also benefit from the system. Basically, everyone to be happy and live a better life. So that's the formalization we want, not just putting people into restricted operational conditions, but promoting whatever one is doing and making sure they improve their lives.
So, Wisborne, we have coming up next year is the Zimbabwe's next elections. What is your hope for the next elections?
So, I'm just hoping that our next elections are not going to be like any other of those elections we have witnessed as a country before. All the elections we have witnessed as a country since independence, they have not been very, very good because they always carry bad memories, should I say. And these coming elections, they are quite mixed in the sense that you discover sometimes some people they feel there is no need to vote because sometimes they don't see the change they expect. But some they feel there is need to vote because there are a lot of developmental initiatives taking place. I will give you a very good example now to say under the Second Republic, which we are in now, there have been different efforts which have really come on board this later part of the period to put different facets of the economy to order, the infrastructure, the road infrastructure, and other different economic lines. But the key part of it, even the formalization strategy I've referred to, which the government is really having a bias toward. But the key part of it is we feel sometimes the pace is a bit slow. And the question is now, after elections, would this be a continuous process in terms of making sure we have a proper formalization setup which does not criminalize its citizens? So as we are going into these elections, I think the language to the informal workers and traders, everyone is hoping for a better leadership which can look into their interests and improve their living conditions, especially the component of criminalization, where people are just being, the other funny part, Ryan, which I never mentioned, is corruption. Most of informal workers and traders, they are ending up being, put into corruption, corrupt practices through bribes, not because they want, but because they are arrested and they can't go to the police station to pay a fine because the time they are going there, that's the time they are supposed to be doing themselves to make sure they put food at the table at home in the evening. So they end up taking $1 out of the pocket to give an officer who has arrested them so that they are allowed to trade. So the elections should speak to all these things to make sure they take away all these facets of corruption. I think people who come with such a manifesto as a political party and present such things will reach or will gain a very big ground of workers and traders in the informal economy, because these are the key things they are looking forward to. Issues to do with housing, low-income housing scheme. Most of these guys, they are, renting. And low-income housing scheme is a very important part of their lives. And they feel they are excluded from the housing systems. So if any political party brings these things into space and do it with a meaningful heart, certainly they will win the heart of the informal workers and traders. But there is need to keep giving education and awareness raising to the informal workers and traders to understand the importance of voting and the right people to vote for, without naming any political party, but to tell them to look at what is important from a candidate.
And do you think the greatest opportunity for change is at the national level or the local level?
So I think we have been witnessing a very good change at local level through this devolution process, which is still undergoing in the country. I think a lot of local authorities are beginning to focus in their local development, and government has been, giving those that go-ahead space for people to improve, which is a very positive development. And I hope this can also cascade to the national level, because that's where it matters most. When sometimes a system is centralized, it blocks a lot of good initiatives. So this is what we are looking forward to, and we just hope that change. I think the leadership which will come on board should be a leadership which really wants to address the key challenges of the citizens. That's the hope.
Wisborne, I'm energized by the work that you do. Now, as leader of ZCIEA, what do you say to your members, to your coalition, to keep them going, to move them forward? What do you say to them?
I tell them the reason I became a member of ZCIEA, it was a desperate move to participate meaningfully in an engagement which can improve the lives of vulnerable people, using my mother as the baseline. And there are many young people out there, or many informal workers and traders who are of my age, some who are younger than me, who are in the informal economy not by choice. And there are also vulnerable mothers there who are also in the informal economy to just earn a living. So the only way we can manage to overcome some of the hurdles we face is by being united. We have to come together, speak issues of critical concern as a unity, and continue to knock the doors. Certainly, we'll overcome, we'll achieve it. And I think I also have a role to play, which I think I'll share with my organization, and we try to strategize around it to give a lot of education around democracy, around the importance of unity of purpose, the importance of us speaking on issues of whether social protection is a united force, and put up some strategies of how we can also team up as a collective and set aside even some of these networks or platforms where we can also improve our livelihoods even beyond the government, so that we work with plan A and plan B. So that if the government can't provide for us a health insurance scheme, we have to try and create a health insurance scheme for ourselves. If it can't provide for us financial inclusion scheme, we have to try and set up our own financial scheme where we can improve our lives. This is the only way we can go, because it's a struggle. And as it is a struggle, we have to be resilient and face the struggle. As we advocate, we also keep soldiering on. So please, to comrades out there, let's keep uniting. We need each other, be it in Zimbabwe, be it in Africa, be it in the whole world. As long as an informal trader are facing challenges, we can unite and speak with one voice to make sure change comes to our table.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I think we'll wrap it up there. Wisborne, it's been a pleasure to speak with you and hear a little bit about your story and the great work that you are doing in Zimbabwe. It's been a pleasure to work with you over the past few years, and I'm really excited to see the work that you and ZCIEA and the Informal Economy Coalition continue to do in Zimbabwe. And I'm confident that we will see positive change from all the great advocacy work that you guys are doing in Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you, Kim. It has been a pleasure for me also to be in this space. Thank you to ZCIEA for this opportunity. I'm very grateful, and you are a great partner to work with, and we are excited. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Democracy That Delivers has been brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. For more information, please visit ziep.org.